I'm just some dude in the internet running my mouth with a background in journalism, so I know how to actually work through a program and work through an actual story and find the bits and pieces. But I'm just some dude on the internet. I'm not very popular. We'll brag about myself in a bit going forward. But I did stay up, and I say stay up because I was feeling terrible today. I stayed up and I watched the about 18-minute speech that President Donald Trump gave. And pretty much it was taped, so that was what was the surprise was. He addressed the nation in a tape sort of thing about himself. The nation, yeah, it was sort of, couched in that this is what our nation has done, best thing ever, blah, blah, blah. But it was a not even humble brag of himself for 18 minutes going forward. Then I watched about 15 more minutes of some of the spin, and I tried to look for the conservative spin, the folks that were in his people that are behind him, people that are going to push his stuff and say what they're going to say to make the thing go well, to sell it to the people. Because here's the problem. Donald Trump was supposed to come on TV to give a brief little talk, 15 minutes, 18 minutes, fine, to sort of sell how the nation's doing better than the nation believes it's doing. All the surveys, all the polls, all the talking say is that things aren't going so well. In fact, with the independents, who this was supposed to be targeted to, independents are finding themselves with a approval rating in some places as low as 15% in overall what he's doing. If you add it all up together, it's about 15%. That's not the 39% we're getting in most places. It's not the 45% in some places. It's like in some places, literally, they don't like him as independents. There's Republicans who love him, who are going to overly make it work so that the numbers work out well and are close to halfway. But people aren't doing well. Layoffs are happening. Economy is bad. There's so many factors. Healthcare has been in the news because nothing's been done about it, although he's bragged about what he's going to do about it. He did some bragging about it tonight. We'll hopefully get those places go there. Because it was sort of a late last minute thing, what I actually did was I turned to watch the coverage. I watched it on News Nation because I just had to have on something. So I watched 30 minutes of Chris Cuomo of the coming through. He was wrapping up with Bill O'Reilly, who was, of course, selling the president. Of course, gave a couple extra pieces. He talked to some callers that were doing some things. While that was going on, I looked at some YouTube stuff and watched some people talk about the pre-show. And then I watched it first on News Nation. Then I turned to Reese Waters, who is a conservative. He's a black commentator, comedian commentator, who watched it live and had his folks sort of live tweeting to it. So there was a lot of that going on. So I got to see some real live reaction to it. Listened to him for about 5-10 minutes. Then I said, watch some of the commentators, mostly conservative folks, looking for them in particular. And then I asked ChatGPT to give me an outline of what they have going on because there were so many things popping off that were just kind of crazy. If I would have been feeling a little better today, I would have recorded it and actually had some sort of AI take notes or something like that. So what you're going to see is real time me going over the list of things that the AI said were there. Now AI can screw it up, so we'll kind of go along with that one. But much as I wanted to do this as a live feed, because it just felt live. This will be live to tape because it is what it is. My audio is terrible with the with my internet here, so I didn't want it to get all faltered going forward. But this is my reaction, so it'll be a bit delayed because it's got the process and yada, 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 blah, 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 of Donald Trump and the speech tonight on December the 17th, 2025, and his response to the people who aren't treating him well. And this is what he has to say about that. It's going to get wild. It's going to get crazy. It's going to get really, really wild. All right. So hydration, plenty of this happening. Once again, thank you so much for joining us for the Conversation Project and what we do here. This is a reaction to Donald Trump's last speech of about, wrapped up about 20 minutes ago, 40 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago. And, yeah. So these are the notes. I'm reading them straight from what I got from ChatGPT. Apparently, I didn't like my prompt. But what we had tonight was a prime times televised address to the nation, December 17th, 2025, about 18, 20 minutes from the White House. Multiple outlets covered it. So all the networks covered it. All the networks stopped their programming. ABC had the jingle ball from iHeartRadio, paused it to play this thing for a little bit and go back to music. Other folks were just kind of, BSing for an hour until they got to this thing here. The news is perfect because you can talk it up, you can play the thing, and you can talk it behind the scenes. So it's there. So we have a detailed topic map from the December 17th address, including specific facts and data points that were presented as support, while reporting indicates them, and where available, independent contextual numbers cited by reporters. That is what the GPT is going to give to us. I'll give you my commentary. Spoiler alert. And too long, didn't read or didn't watch. It was nuts. It was nuts. It was nuts. 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 Now, let's go on along with what we have here. And these are the order that it decided they want to put them in. So bear with me. This is ChatGPT writing out a bit of a script for me last minute without me having time to go through it. I've not read any of this other than skimming. I think there's 8 total points here that were there just to see how long it's going to be. It's 5 pages per this font size in Word. So let's go at it. Topics covered in Trump's televised address and the facts used to support them. Topic number 1. The core frame of the night was the economy is improving and strengthening. He argued the economy is improving and the administration is fixing prior economic problems. Well, yeah, he didn't use any charts or graphs. That's a lie. He pointed to the stock market strength, lower gas prices, and a push around AI investment and advancement to as indicators of momentum. Yeah, we're going to this part before we go into what reporter's side is context. So no charts, no graphs. This was just one big video of him standing in front of the fireplace in one of the offices that's been overly produced for Christmas time. So there's all that stuff. And he talked about the stock market being strong. He did talk about big stock market numbers, best if ever been, and lower gas prices. In some places, less than $2 a gallon, and it's going to be better than that in some places as well. I've not seen any reporting about $1.99 gas gallons anywhere. That would be a pretty good thing. If if a gallon of gas is averaging around $2.50, $3.50 a gallon, somewhere we would know that where it's down that low. And again, maybe it could be that low someplace to bring it down, but no one's talking about gas being under $2 anywhere. And of course, AI investments and investments are what's part of the thing that is actually hurting us. Part of the thing that's actually going to kill us because the AI itself is eliminating some things that need to be done that were done by people. Innovation, it is fine, it is there. But as I said, I have AI writing my notes right here, and AI is doing a fairly not so great job of it as if I were writing this down myself. I should have basically sat out of bed and started taking notes point by point because I knew exactly where things were going. So yeah. AP is noting inflation is at 3%. Job gains are averaging 17,000 a month since April, and unemployment is rising from 4 to 4.6%, highlighting tensions between the upbeat message and softer labor inflation signals. Essentially, Trump said we've got more jobs than ever, and in fact, what he said about jobs was the fact that basically is per capita or per essentially the way he's worked it out, all the jobs are going to citizens who deserve them, and all the migrants, all the illegals that were here showing up are losing jobs. So there's a net gain for all people who are actual American people to get jobs. Yeah, something to the effect of that one. Essentially, all the bad people are not getting jobs, but all the good people are getting those jobs, even if those jobs are picking fruits and cleaning up in restaurants and working behind people in hotels, because those are the jobs that are being taken by those people. Another point is that Biden era policies caused the pain. His argument, economic difficulties were framed as consequences of Biden era policy, the choices and conditions inherited on taking office. 11 months ago, I took office and Biden was in charge and things were terrible. I don't know why I keep saying charts. Mostly because it's ChatGPT and it's crazy. So there were no charts. There are no charts to talk about. There was no things. There were numbers. There were replies. There were statements. Some of them weren't so bad. Talking about the border being shut down, not a bad thing. Legals entering at zero. No, we're not talking about it. So maybe it is close to zero. I know it's really, really, really down. So that is true. But open borders and the economic policies and all the things that Biden had going forward are something that he can tout as a plus. The problem is they were policies that Biden was running that were the fixes for the policies from Trump 1.0, Trump 45. And so now Trump 47, Trump 2.0 is essentially trying to go back to those ways and doing them with a very strong hand, pun intended, to kind of show exactly who's boss in a time where we just watched him for 18 minutes show that he is losing his faculties. Words I said out loud. Prices and affordability claims, cars, groceries, very old word groceries, household costs. The argument from one DJT, prices are coming down. They're all coming down. Or policies are reversing the price increases. They're all working their way down, with particular emphasis on everyday affordability. No charts, but he referenced a claim that car prices rose by 22% or more under Biden and presented something he is reversing. And maybe car prices did rise under Trump during COVID, when it was hard to get people to build these cars and people weren't not selling their cars. And as part of the economy going forward, it was basically hard to get cars. Maybe they were going up during Trump as we were trying to figure out our way through the economy at the time, when at the time, to make things work, he was, of course, sending out checks. We'll talk about sending out checks again in just a bit to people out there and wanting to actually delay some checks because he wanted to write his name on the checks. Spoiler alert, most people get things direct deposit these days, so writing your name on a check is really a waste of time. However, there are people who believe that Trump gave them a check. Trump wrote them a check for money, so he's a good guy. Biden is one thing, and fighting for 11 months on Biden's policy is great. The problem is lies, and more lies. The economy is not doing better. It's doing worse by many accounts. And if you want to give Trump a little bit of credit, give him a little cheddar, if you will, it's doing worse in different ways with different policies. He implemented some policies his first term that did some weirdness, and the COVID didn't help. Biden did some things to try to right the ship on our standing with the world and in the political realm for the policies that were the numbers. So they weren't great. He also was losing his marbles as well. And there was nobody behind on the Democratic side to play up what could be done anyway to fix things there. So Trump is back. Trump is back is doing things the way he wants to do. And they are not working like they were before. Not working. But he says everything is great. Everything is better. It's all great, better. Oh, the tariffs. Tariffs and economic policy, how it's going. The trade-offs of tariffs. Tariffs are bringing in so much money that we are going to use some of that tariff money to pay every soldier $1,776, $1,776 to every soldier, which if there were a million soldiers would be a few billion dollars, actually $1 trillion because of math. But we're not going to dwell on that yet. The coverage of the actual event in his address was kind of about how tariffs are wonderful. Tariffs are his favorite word, and tariffs do great things. Reuters came out pretty quickly, said the address would emphasize the wins, but noted that the tariff policy as a driver of price uncertainty. Essentially, the reason why things cost so much is because of the tariffs, especially since they're all over the place. And a key backdrop to the economic messaging on tariffs is that they're bringing in extra money, but that money is coming off the backs of us Americans who are paying the price of that one. Similarly, other places doing the same context with tariffs reporting context. Now, let's talk about, and this is where you apologize, because it's a stupid computer. But let's talk about tariffs for just a moment. Tariffs aren't bad inherently, but they're meant to slow the economies of other nations. They're meant to slow down their ability to throw cheap stuff at us. They're literally meant to make things more expensive from overseas that are not necessarily cheap, so that hopefully you'll buy more stuff that is quote unquote nationally American because we're from America, or you'll just pay that extra cost for that cheap stuff, and it actually, becomes something of a stopgap, a slower down to slow down someone from dumping stuff on you. That's why the tariffs on steel from other places, which we say is not as good as steel here, is a big deal, so that people will buy American steel and not buy Chinese steel or whatever, because it's a cheaper price and it's seen as inferior because of that. People will buy less toys, less stuff from an overseas supplier who can do it a lot cheaper than they will here. So you'll buy more American-made stuff here and make the American companies go better. And that's how it works out there. Everybody makes the same amount of money because the American goods cost more to make, so they're usually charged more. You put a tariff on a foreign good, it costs more. Guess what? American goods are going to raise their prices just a little bit so that they can make a little money and still be cheaper. Everyone pays more for it. Everyone pays more for it. Tariffs make prices go up on purpose, so everyone pays more for it. The economy does not get better with higher tariffs on different places. The economies actually have to slow down because you're paying more for everything. You're slowing down someone else's economy so that hopefully they don't overtake you, but your economy can't get better based off tariffs unless what they're selling is so terrible and people are that stupid, you need to stop them from buying it. Back to immigration, back to the border, the win. This is what he argued, that the border conditions have improved so much with fewer crossings. He said zero, and law enforcement had a significant achievement. He said zero. He said zero. Zero people have crossed in the last couple of months. Nobody's got to cross. He also threw a bunch of numbers of all the murders and rapists and killers and the folks that come through, and how there were like some big number, and of that number of folks, they all killed somebody, and most of them killed more than one person. So that's a group of hundreds of thousands of people who have been sent across the border, because that's what they do, and who have killed at least 300,000 people based off of Steiner math. If you don't get that joke, then you're not a wrestling fan. You didn't watch Monday Night Raw with CM Punk and Braun Breaker. As I already said, the border slowdown is great. It's awesome. Tactics, but the fact that there are less people crossing the border, or we're not talking about it. We were talking about it big time during the Biden era stuff because people were seeming to just walk across when they felt like it. Now, no one's covering it. Maybe Trump has locked out enough journalists so no one's there to watch anymore, but no one seems to be covering it. No one seems to have any words to contradict anything Trump is saying about the border. So that's great. That's wonderful. That's great. That's wonderful. But it's one aspect of a lot of aspects that are not going well so far. And we're actually not getting very much in the way of an actual explanation or stories on it. So we shall see there. Let's talk about the escalation with Venezuela and oil tankers and enforcement actions. This may be where ChatGPT is getting a little crazy because I don't remember a big part of this one being really big. But we are getting tougher towards places like Venezuela, tied to security and drug trafficking narratives. Although there are a lot of reasons to want to invade, word used on purpose, a place like Venezuela with things going on there and some of the nations that are nearby. The drug trafficking is sort of a smokescreen. You may have remembered they talked about Susie Wiles in her interview that she did with Vanity Fair, saying that that was a smokescreen. It's all about regime change. Trump wants to change the regime someplace. Venezuela is a good place to do it. Why not there? What's going on there? So the big talk about what's going on there, tied to security of the nation, tied to drug trafficking narratives. A lot of it's just tied to the fact that we want to carry a big stick and enrage. I'll say enrage. Some people there to make us mad enough to go fight down something, and you have a war just to have a war, I guess. The blockade itself is being treated as proof of the resolve we have. The live coverage is framing it as a major contemporary policy action connected to the address here. And of course, we know from yesterday, there was contention over the double strike tap, the attack where they they blew up a ship. It didn't sink. Some people were still there on top of it. They showed the video of the first strike. They didn't. They told us that eventually they had to do a second strike to sink it completely because people were trying to right up the ship and get the drugs, move the drugs along, and not try to save their lives because when your ship blows up, you just sort of like, okay, I guess I'll just die now. And they basically blew it up for the second strike. And now Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of War, good God, y'all, don't want to show the video or the second part of the video to the public. Which brings us to drugs, fentanyl, and the national security framing. The coverage has been elevated for fentanyl and drug enforcement. But one of the things about these boats in Venezuela, they have been, according to people who kind of know how the drug traffic works, not bringing fentanyl to the United States. In fact, fentanyl is coming mostly from China. Yes, it's being smuggled in through the border, and mostly that being smuggled in from the southern border is being smuggled in by Americans who are smuggling fentanyl in drugs from China. Now, these drugs in these boats, mostly cocaine, maybe some weed, and they're going to other Caribbean nations for distribution to Europe. So there's that. But the administration is publicly elevating the fentanyl drug enforcement as tabletop stories, the top tier national security issues that's going on there. Fentanyl has been classified as a weapon of mass destruction. The White House is wanting to do its best to stop the fentanyl, stop and save Americans who are, dying of using the drugs. There's also the problem that the issue with fentanyl and drugs itself is a supply issue. That's actually a demand issue. You can choke out some supply, that makes the demand that's there, and there's a lot of demand for it, that much worse. And we're not addressing the demand. We're addressing the supply, which is awesome, but not addressing any demand. So that's 7, 8. Okay, I knew there was 8. Culture war, political grievances among policy claims going forward. Reuters previewed the address and echoed themes from recent speeches that veered into cultural policy issues, including immigration and gender rights. Not a big bump into gender rights, but, I guess there was. They did talk about men playing in women's sports and how all the illegals are now not showing up there. The Guardian live coverage similarly described the address as mixing policy assertions with more combative political rhetoric there going forward. All right. So there's all that. We're going to just get rid of that one because it's there. The notable things are the 1776 checks. Each military member is going to get $1,778, and I'm going to do that. So I'm going to estimate 1.5 million soldiers. 1.5 500,000. That times 1776 is $2,664,000. $2,664,000. Not quite trillions, but it's a lot. So where this money's coming from, I don't know. When someone tried to offer up a little bit of extra cash when the government shut down to make sure that soldiers were getting paid, and realized that that wasn't going to pay all the soldiers for even a pay period, it becomes an issue. Now, can a buck private coming right out of basic really use $2,000, 1776? Yes. Can a colonel really use it? Sure. I mean, I guess it's good. So it's not really an equity thing. It's a bonus thing for being a soldier at our 250th anniversary, getting that going forward. That sounds great. That sounds wonderful. Who actually authorized this? Where's this money coming from? Why is this the first time we're hearing about it? Because Trump likes to throw bombastic things at us at these types of things. So if you're looking for that 1776 and you think it's going to change your life, we'll see how that comes about. I hadn't seen much commentary onto that one other than when I was watching the Reese Waters coverage. That was the only thing that really made him say anything when that popped out. He was kind of like huh? That was the only thing that really made him jump off guard and actually react to something live in live time. Other than that, we were just basically watching it as fans. I tried to watch Don Lemon, but there were people that were going over bits and pieces, like he was talking economics, and he was saying the guy was actually talking over it. So that was a problem. I needed to watch it clean going forward. Other than that, it was 18 minutes of anger, 18 minutes of vitriol, 18 minutes of I'm angry and I'm just going to scream at this microphone and tell you people why you're wrong. I am right. I am awesome. USA, 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 or Trump, 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 if you will, because Trump has saved the USA. We were the worst, and now we're the best. We had the worst border in the history of the world. Now we have the best border in the history of the world in 11 months. Those are impossible things to say, yet those are the exact words that came out of Donald Trump's mouth. Everything was terrible, and it was all Biden's fault, and technically Obama's fault because Obama did the things first, and Biden tried to take it back to Obama and blah, 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 blah. But I'm fixing it. Most of it's already fixed. I'm fixing what's left over right now. It's going to get there. Time. It takes time. It takes a little time to do these things. Groceries is an ancient word, but it takes time to fix the groceries. If you are a Republican operative, if you are brought onto a channel to be the balance that is what's from the right side, if you're supposed to be selling a Republican GOP sort of slant because you work for those guys and you want to stay employed, you maybe actually love the actual policies and love the actual platform that you do, I feel sorry for you having to defend this. And I listen to people defend this for about 15, 20 minutes after the speech was over. And they're doing the talking points. They're railing back and forth. They're saying the things. They're doing all the stuff that you'll say when people give these types of speeches, and you talk about the bits and pieces touting how this is improved and this is better and this is going for here. So there's all that. But let me be clear. This was not a triumph of a man who's doing his best for America. This is a petulant man-child who does not understand, and I don't understand why he doesn't understand, what his role is, who he serves, and yes, he serves us, and what it is we're asking about. They're simple questions. The economy seems really, really bad. What are you going to do about it? Already fixed it. What are you talking about? Everything's great. Gas prices are coming down, but inflation seems to be up. And the prices at the grocery store, we talked about eggs. Eggs have been balanced, but everything else is up. What are we going to do about it? It's fixed. It's going to be fixed. If not, it's going to be fixed soon. Everything is balanced. Everything is good. And if you're in the military, I'm going to give you $1,700 to help make it better. If you don't understand that Donald Trump has some issues, I'm not saying that he's mentally incompetent, but he's getting old. He's obviously tired. And after this address was extremely cranky and probably needed a nap. If you aren't seeing there aren't some bits and pieces that aren't quite working, then you've got a problem. You don't have to like the other side. You don't have to lose your love for this guy. But 100% is 100%. And this guy is not hitting things at 100%. You make the Hall of Fame by hitting about 40%, getting on base 40% of the time. Trump's saying he's hitting these things like 90% of the time. He's always hitting on base and home runs every other swing. It's not. We know that. It's obvious. You can't not see this. I'm just some dude rambling on the internet. So, take my words for whatever you want to take them for. In fact, here's the proof. Right now, we're at 279 subscribers. That's where we hit. We had a bunch of people in this last week, so we're very happy to have you here. We hit 2,500 a few months ago. In the last couple of weeks, we've bolted up to here. So our growth is very slow. Our time making this is very, very steady, but not as big as I want to. We hit. I wanted to get 2,000 new subscribers this year. We basically are going to get about 1,500. At the pace we got here, close to that. So we're happy with that one. But that's where I am. These are my words. This is what I see. And I'm just some guy with less than 3,000 subscribers. Many folks with much bigger platforms are saying the exact same things I am. So what say you? What do you think? Tonight was the terrible night for Donald Trump. At least for his performance, because it was not a great performance. Anyone who's going to tell him that it was is lying to him. And they believe it, they're lying to themselves. Period. There's a lot of things that go on in this nation, and believe it or not, more people who may not be fans of Donald Trump are rooting for his success, because his success means we survive a few more years and not just have to suffer from whatever is going on in his derangement syndrome. My actual TDS and just not liking the guy, it's a thing. But I can be fairly fair and assess the situation. I'm not going to talk about his mental state. I'm not going to talk about his health. I'm going to talk about this performance right here. Whoever wrote this speech, and if he did it himself, needs to go away, needs to take a break, needs to evaluate how things really are. Need to understand that the world are the people around you, not what's going on in your head. And that whatever bubble is being built around Donald Trump to make him think that everything is wonderful is a terrible bubble. And if we're blaming Stephen Miller for it, somebody needs to take care of Stephen Miller immediately. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much for joining me for this rant. Thank you so much for joining me for this time. Thank you so much for paying attention to the speech itself, the president himself, and the situation that you may be living through right now. Chances are it's not wonderful. It might be pretty good. You may be okay. But a wonderful life, as we tend to watch this holiday season, in perspective, based off the numbers, is not there. You can, do your George Bailey and say, I'm underwater, I'm going to jail. Isn't that beautiful? There's one way to say that. But it's not all that beautiful when people are out there literally suffering and don't know what to do next. And oh yeah, he did bring up the fact that the private sector did create more jobs in government in this 11 months. A lot of it because the government fired people randomly, then brought them back, and then fired them again, then brought them back. And the whole reason how people get pulled out of the while small business essentially hires more people and really funds the world, one way that people actually pull themselves out of poverty, moving from classes from lower to middle to upper middle class, is through government jobs. And you may think they're all a big waste of time, but it's through the government, which is supposed to be easily sustainable and something you can count on, is how a lot of people move forward in their actual stuff. And it'll not necessarily stay in government forever, but it's a leveling playing field that puts them somewhere where they can negotiate going forward. I'm sad I missed that one. I got so stuck on the 1776. I'm sad I missed that one. So that's it. 40 minutes of me complaining about 20 minutes of Donald Trump. What say you? What say you about my very poor, rudimentally ChatGPT write-up? We'll have a full write-up again where that's going to focus more on the coverage with some more time into it and more articles written. So that should be better. I'll blame the robot editor for the misses on that one. We'll definitely talk about this again in the morning. Not say morning because this is being recorded. Right now it's 9:13 Central Time. We'll definitely have some hits on this one for things you might have heard for Thursday morning. And we'll probably go into the weekend with some bits and pieces. So thank you for joining me for my bit of Trump derangement syndrome therapy. If you have the same issues, let me know in the comments. If you think I'm all full of it, let me know in the comments. Let's have a conversation on this one, because this is one we got to have a conversation on.